Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Nicki Friis. Nicki Friis, before he built his growth advisory firm, he helped start 2 digital companies and scale them to a team of 20. Both companies are still growing and still hold shares in both. Nicki founded NICQI, NICQI, because he wanted to do nothing but growing businesses in multiple industries and markets. Nicki helps ambitious digital companies build growth strategies that acquire, retain, and monetize more customers. Nicki is hosting a weekly live show called Out of Growth, where he interviews growth leaders on their growth strategies. Nicki has 2 life coaching degrees and an Enneagram Practitioner degree, which has formed the basis of his incredible life today. Welcome to the podcast, Nicki.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. It's a pleasure being on your show again.
Yes, again, yes, we recorded this once. Unfortunately, I hit the record button and it did not record, so we're doing take 2. So thank you for being willing to come back.
You're most welcome. I'm sure today we are both more aware of, you can say, the topics and kind of what interests both of us and how to provide the optimal value to your audience. And that's really what we're in for, right?
That's right. That's right. So let's just start out by you telling us, who you are, how you started out, and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Nicki Friis. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark, a small country here in the North Scandinavia. You can say my entrepreneurial journey started when I was quite young, actually. When I was in 3rd grade in elementary school, I built my first website and basically tried to, market and create a hockey team for me and my friends, reaching out to sponsors and getting a trainer to come and train us and all of these things. I was 9 to 10 years old back then, so quite strange of a young person like me to do that, in my opinion at least. But on the, you can say, the more professional side, when I was 16, I started my first business, and back ever since I've been starting businesses within, say, marketing and growth. But of course, one thing is, you can say, earning to live, and the other thing, of course, is also growing on the personal side and of course growing the business. And I'm really in for both. So I have a equation that I call love times growth equals my happiness, because I believe that I need to be loved and I need to love others and I need to grow personally. Personally, also, in my opinion at least, grows my business. So it's also business growth, and that equals my optimal happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again, Kimberly.
Yes, yes, beautiful. And yeah, we did talk about that. Your personal growth was very, very important. And it's just amazing the things that you've done in this short time. So yeah, so congratulations on that. And so tell me about, how does someone who, with your thought process, how do you think about short term as far as long term goals?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, I'm still quite young in my opinion at least, and of course, when you're young, you typically think very short term. And I did the same. I mean, I've been starting businesses because I wanted get money fast and kind of get successful fast and gain status and all of these things. And that was also why I started my business when I was 16. It was in the promotion branding space, basically promoting parties.
Mhm.
And when you are the one who are, you can say, the top of the pie in the event space in Denmark in such a young age, a lot of people want to know you because you are the entry person into all of these nice parties. Um, but I guess that was kind of like the short term angle that I had on it back then. But I can say today, and in regards to the long term thinking, that's a thinking that I've tried to apply for quite some years. I'm not sure exactly how many years, but at least since I was around 17 or 18 years old, I've tried to think about, you can say, compound effects.
Mm-hmm.
In that regards, that what you do today and the investments that you make in yourself today, they will compound over time. And that's kind of like the thinking that I've had for the years until now, that whatever I do, I try to invest in myself first, because I know that it will compound exponentially over the years, rather than, I don't know, buying a nice car right now, then rather invest in myself, going to personal development events, taking degrees in personal development, in coaching, in the Enneagram, in business, and all of these things that is basically building up on top of my current knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that it will compound over long term. Um, I don't know, if, Kimberly, if you've heard about you can say the thought experiment with linear thinking and exponential thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if I share?
Well, please share it.
Oh, thank you. So basically, imagine a big stadium. Let's talk NFL or something like that. A big, huge stadium. And in this thought experiment, I can't remember how large the stadium was, but imagine that you have one drop of water dropping every minute. And if it's linearly, then one drop of water will drop in minute one, in minute two, one more drop of water will drop. So that's two in total. And of course, in the third minute, then a third drop of water will drop, and that's three drops in total. But if it was exponential growth here, then of course, at the first drop, in the first minute, one drop of water would drop. In the second minute, two drops of water would drop. In the third minute, four drops of water would drop. And in the fourth minute, 8 drops of water would drop. And then, of course, it grows exponentially. But the thought experiment here was that, so imagine that that this stadium, imagine that all the audience are basically chained, what do you say? They are chained to their seats. They can't escape, basically. And the thought experiment was here, okay, many drops of water, for how long would you basically sit on your seat and not be scared, not be fearful? And at first, of course, it was the linear way of thinking. That would take, I can't remember how many minutes, but it would take, I don't know, 2 million minutes or something like that for it to be full of water, this stadium. And then the thought experiment here was, okay, so what about if we look at it on an exponential scale? How long would it take for the stadium to fill up with water and you to drown if you were sitting there and the water level would rise exponentially? And I think it was only 24 minutes before the entire stadium would be full of water and you would basically drown if it was exponentially. And the way of thinking short term versus long term is, again, say short term is quite linear. If you do one thing with a short term output, you will get another thing tomorrow, maybe. But on, you can say, in the long term thinking, and if you think about the compounding effects and the exponential way of growing yourself and your personal development, then imagine that $1 that you put into yourself and your personal growth now, let's say in 24 days or 24 months or 24 years, if what you put into yourself right now will grow exponentially, then you will be far ahead of everybody else who still kept growing linearly. And that's really the way that I try to think about, say, my life and how I want to grow personally.
Wow, and that
Did
makes
it make sense?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really does. And you said a word earlier that made me think about this. So, how was it being a very young man and having this status? I mean, there's a lot of people that want this status. What is it? How did it affect you?
Yeah, I mean, back then, so, and I know we will return to this too. In the Enneagram, I'm what I would define as I relate to what we define as type 3. And type 3 is a person who is really driven by accomplishments, status, looking good in front of others. And when I was about this age, I mean, 16, 17, 18, and 19, I really wanted to get as much status as possible in the shortest amount of time. So again, I had this promotion brand where I promoted parties. On the side, I was actually modeling as well, um, both in Denmark but also in Italy. Um, and I was working on side businesses as well, e-commerce businesses, all of these things, because I wanted to get rich fast. I wanted to look good such that I would be attractive to I'm a hetero to the other gender, and of course I would want to look older than I was, because then I would have more possibilities and opportunities to work with more established businesses and thereby get more status and maybe more money to deal with, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, and and back then that was all that I cared about to some degree. But what also started to happen then was that I started to become super stressed. For one thing, I was still in what we call gymnasium here, which is kind of like high school in the States. I was in the first year, and in the second year, I was working while I was sitting in class. In the back of the class, I had my own my laptop. I had even brought a keyboard sometimes and a mouse, and I don't know, sometimes a headset. And and basically, you are allowed to do that if you do not interrupt or disturb the class. So I was basically just working while being at school back then. And again, I got super stressed. My grades was falling. I was about not to get what do you call it, to get to the next degree. What do you call it, or to the next
Grade.
year?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah. So the school basically called me in together with my parents, and we had to sit down and talk about my declining grades and what we could basically do about it. And they were like, "Nicki, if you continue like this, you will not get to the next year. You'll get thrown out of school." Um, and of course, I was looking into, Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and all of these cool people. And should I drop out? I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, right? That was really kind of like the mindset I had back then. And it was not because I had anything going back then that was kind of growing exponentially to any extent. But still, back then, I was looking at all these aspirational icons, or you could say, in my opinion, it's my idols, right? To some degree. And I was really thinking about this, but eventually my parents convinced me that I at least had to cut down on some things. So I quit two companies or something like that I was kind of working on. I stopped with all the event things because I was also seeing people older than me who maybe was around 26 or something like that back when I was 17 here, 18, who was still doing this kind of business. And that was not really the business that I wanted to do. I didn't want to stay up late, get drunk, and kind of living this life. I wanted to make something else in the world. Um, yeah, and I mean, I got depressed when I was 17, 18 years old, and or my doctor back then, he at least said that it was a beginning stress, beginning depression, not like actual depression or anything like that. And at the same time, I had this model thing going, and Instagram was about to blow up back then, back in 2012. Um, and I posted all these model pictures on Instagram, and suddenly everybody who would see me outside of Instagram, they, in my opinion, they wanted to see the perfect me because that was the image that I presented on Instagram. But but of course you don't look like your images. I mean, of course, when you're a model as well, your images is heavily retouched, and even more back then. Today it's maybe a little more natural in some cases at least. So basically, I didn't want to show up at school because I wasn't looking as good as I was in pictures. And at the same time, I started stressing out. So I got a lot of what are called sets or pimples as well. And it started just become worse and worse and worse because I stressed more and more and more, and I got more and more afraid of kind of having people seeing who I really was.
Mm.
So basically, between classes, I was hiding in the basement all by myself. Um, I was not participating in any social activities outside of school as well and after school, and basically just trying to hide. Even though that in other people's mind, I was, or at least that was my image of it. I was this very popular model who had business going, who earned quite a lot of money if you are a 17, 18-year-old person. Um, but still, I felt miserably.
Mm.
And I think that's also, you can say, the base or the foundation for why I believe personal growth is so important today.
Mm.
And why I've also chosen to take the path that I have today. I'm no longer a part of a startup. I've been part of 2 startups, as mentioned, but today I'm what can you call an independent consultant. I can work with who I want. I can wake up when I want. I can take everything in my own tempo, and that's also the basis of, you can say, my now incredible life.
Mhm.
Yeah, a
When
lot of talking. Sorry, Kimberly.
it's great. So, um, now that you kind of have your values in line, so you know what you want, you know what you don't want, when you're looking at companies to actually help or work with, what do you look for?
So I still have a little bit of, you can say, this thing that is driving me, or one of my passions, of course. I really want to work with ambitious companies because I'm still ambitious, even though, and it's not wrong, even though I know that it's really my ego speaking, right? Um, it's about something else. It's about, I don't know, again, status or something like that, and it's something that is just deeply rooted within me, and I'm aware of it, and I'm getting better and better and better every time. But I'm really looking at ambitious companies. It needs to be software-based companies. And then of course we can talk about demographics and segments and everything, but I really look for ambitious companies. I need to it needs to be a founder or a person, a contact person that is humble, who is willing to learn, who is I mean who is friendly to me. I haven't really thought about, you can say, what kind of person, because in my initial conversations with potential clients, I can quickly kind of get a sense if this is a person that I would like to spend time with, who will contribute to the growth of my business and my happiness, really, right?
Mhm.
And that's, you can say, that's a thing that I have. That's a way that I've become very fortunate, because I now have the ability to pick and choose who I want to work with based on what kind of person they are and what kind of, maybe also company values, because I would probably never work with a company who is, I don't know, building chemical weapons or something like that. Just to come up with an absurd example. Um, yeah.
Mhm. And when you work with them, are you just helping them scale, or what are you doing?
Yeah. So I have a 9-step process, or really it's, I, you can say, nail it down into 3 different main steps. And I see myself as a doctor, and that's also how I see myself when I coach. So basically, when I work with company, I first want to diagnose. So often people are coming to me with symptoms. I see all these challenges and these problems and all of these symptoms. We are not growing. We are not getting leads. People are not retaining on our product and keep using our platform and all of these things. So first, I kind of want to diagnose. I want to get a lot of information, and I want to do a lot of analysis. And then what I want to do, of course, is that when I have all this data in front of me and I've done a deep analysis, just like a doctor, I would kind of, okay, how is your heart beating? What is all these MRIs, eye scans telling me? Is there any broken bones? Kind of making all this research first. And then what I would do is that I would look at all of these different solutions. So basically, what should I prescribe to this patient, right, or to this company? because there's many ways that you can go about it dependent on what kind of business it is and what kind of problems and issues and constraints that they are facing, right? And of course, when I've prescribed a solution to the company here, then of course they also have to apply it. Adherence and basically, and we know this in medical as well. Even though that people get prescribed a specific specimen or a I don't know, some pill to take, most people are not adhering to it. They don't follow through. And that's the same that I do. So after prescribing, I want to make sure that they apply. And then I want to make sure that they reapply and keep reapplying. And I want to teach them how to be able to do it themselves as well. So I basically try to keep myself on board until they feel like they are ready to take it further, and until I'm certain that they can actually do it by themselves. Because I don't want, you can say, I don't want them to spend money and then just put it into a black hole that disappears. I want to ensure that they actually get return on investment, and that's only something that they do if they actually apply it and reapply it. Yeah.
That makes sense, because I know I've had coaches. In fact, I just got a new coach recently, and you have this long contract, and it says, I do not guarantee results. Results are individual based on if you do what I tell you to, basically is what it's saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
Exactly,
talk
yeah.
about discipline. Talk about discipline with all this.
So I mean, discipline is a hard nut to crack, if you can say it in that way in English. Sorry for all my bad metaphors. I'm Danish, and I know you probably don't have the same humor that I am. But with discipline, what I really mean, and it's something that I've been working a lot on myself. And back when I was, how old was I? Back in 2014, 15, I wanted to go to the military here in Denmark, as a, like, optional military conscription, basically. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to become more disciplined. And I have interviewed back on a podcast. I used to have the first podcast for entrepreneurs here in Denmark in Danish. I interviewed a former, what can we call it, a Navy SEAL kind of person. And he told me that one of the biggest things that he has done in his life was that he has experienced this training, because he knew that he could walk 3 days without any food, limited water, and no sleep in a forest in freezing in freezing temperature, and still survive, and still be mentally prepared and aware. And he was like, I know I can do that. So being disciplined and working from 9 to 5, now I know that that will be no challenge at all. Mm-hmm. If there's any challenge, or if there's anything that I need to get done, I know that I can work, if I want to, 3 days without sleep. Of course, that is not healthy in the long term, but just, the awareness of your physical limitations, really, right? And your mental limitations in this degree as well. So that was really what I wanted to do when I attended the military. I wanted to experience the same thing. I wanted to know that I could be physically aware and mentally aware for a long period without food and water and sleep and all of these things. Because then a working day from, 9 to 9, that's easy in comparison, Yeah. Not because people need to do it. It's just that that you can, if it makes sense. Mm-hmm. What I figured out then was that when you apply for optional military conscription, here in Denmark at least, they basically take people in from all sorts of life. People who have been running marathons or 60 kilometers in sand, as I have, and people who haven't even run 2 kilometers before. So the you can say the skill level, or the range, you can say, in regards to how well fit we were, was very broad. Yeah. And of course, one thing that we also learned back then is that your team is not stronger than the weakest link, right?
Right.
And that is really what they also try to teach here. But what I also figured out was that I wasn't going to get pushed to the level that I actually wanted. Um, but but then of course I've tried to do other things like boxing, which I've won a boxing match, and I've been running 24 hours without sleep, and just keep running for 24 hours because I kind of also still wanted to kind of explore these physical, I don't know, limitations and boundaries that I have. And then you can say, now that I know that I'm capable of that, then I try to, you can say, combine it with my mental and you can say the personal growth, you could say the spiritual and the mindful, and what can we call it? Not only you can say the physical aspect, but also all the other aspects of who you are as a human, right?
Mhm. So that is really interesting. Running 24 hours. I can't even imagine running 2 hours. So tell me, at what point does your brain or your monkey mind or whatever start talking to you? Like, tell me, tell me about that journey as you're starting to run and you're running further and you're getting hungry or tired, or what happens?
Yeah. So I mean, you are allowed to bring snacks. We run with West, and we have energy bars, and we have water, and there's also supplies at one spot. Um, what happens? I mean, I got a little bit of injured after 16 hours. I think it was 16 hours. So I started. What can you call it? Humping. Can you say humping?
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Like limping,
Limping.
and
Yeah,
you're kind of like,
exactly.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I started limping, and I saw other participants sleeping for like 30 minutes, and I knew that because I was limping, I was not going to sleep for 30 minutes, because I knew that I was already behind the other people. You know what I mean? I was already limited, so I was basically one of the only ones, if not the only one, who didn't sleep back then. But what happened while I was running? I don't know. I was about to give up a bunch of times. That is, you are. I mean, you are tired. You are afraid of falling into the water. I was, at least, because you were running around lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was dark. You didn't know what was kind of going on in front of you, and you were kind of getting into kind of a unconscious state to some degree. Um, I don't know. I don't really know what kept me running, but I haven't done it again, and I probably also won't do it again.
Once was enough.
Once was enough. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because so many people, especially if they got injured, they would stop. They would use the excuse that I'm injured, and if I keep going, I'm going to have permanent damage. So I'm just going to stop.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you didn't.
No, I didn't, and yeah, no, I still don't know why.
So you definitely are that person that never gives up.
Yeah, I actually hate running. Actually, I hate running, but running is just a great way to explore your physical limitations,
Uh-huh.
because it doesn't cost you much, and you can keep running until you get tired. You know what I mean?
That's true. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I choose not to run. I'll do just about any other exercise, but I choose not to run unless it's just part of a CrossFit workout, and we don't have to run that much in those.
No, but then it's high intensity, and
Mhm.
that's also a good way of getting your exercise done.
That's true. It's quick and pretty, mostly painless. So,
Yeah, no, it's fun.
oh my gosh. So, talk a little bit about, you say you've done a lot of personal development and things like that. Talk about shadow work and maybe describe it so people know what it is.
Sure. So, and shadow work, first of all, and how I see it, it's typically something that you see in other people that you don't like, and it's typically because you don't have access to it yourself.
Mhm.
And To give you an example from my own life, I have a girlfriend who is really good at showing anger, unfortunately for me, but also very inspiring. And I'll tell you why. So for many years, I have had a limiting belief in that regard, that it was not, it was, I couldn't be angry. I'd been taught from my childhood that when I was angry, that was wrong, basically. So what I've done is that I've created a shadow, if we can call it that. So anger equal wrong. That was basically, you can say, my belief until recently, basically. And what I've learned from, you can say, looking at and getting inspired by my girlfriend is that she has access to this anger and she can use it to get points across. And that's something that I definitely have missed in some meetings in my past business life. Mm-hmm. So, for example, in meetings, when I thought people was doing something wrong, I would probably just sit quiet and not say anything. And then maybe afterward, I would shoot them an email and say, this is wrong because of blah, 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 blah. Instead of just standing up and telling them straight out, this is wrong. Mm-hmm. Because for me, it was just wrong to have this kind of attitude and this kind of behavior. And that is what shadow work is all about. It's about taking these shadows and bringing them into light, because there's bad qualities in being too angry. And there's also good qualities in just kind of getting, you can say, experiencing a little bit of anger, because you will be a lot more effective in getting your point across and getting people to take you serious in situations like the meeting that I just talked about. Mm-hmm. And of course, also in your relationship, if you are angry about something and you don't show it, at least in my relationships, when my girlfriend gets angry, then I try to, I try to I try to kind of stop it. I try to kind of get it to go away as fast as possible, right? Yeah. And sometimes I am in my full right to be angry as well, but it's just super hard for me, and that's why it's important for me to train, because then she can actually see how angry I become when she does something that I believe is wrong. And of course, it's me who believe it's wrong. It's not necessarily wrong. It's just you can say my rule set or my way of viewing the world, right? Mm-hmm. Last time when we spoke, I gave you this example of this big, beautiful castle. I don't know if you remember. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just briefly, so how I was presented shadow work was presented to me was, imagine this big, beautiful castle. So you're like an infant now, and an infant is just like a big, beautiful castle, or like a baby, right? Before you kind of grow up, then within your castle, all the rooms are just bright with light. All the windows and doors are open. The castle is just beautiful, and all the flowers around us is just blooming. And then, as you can say, the years go by, and maybe your parents kind of show you or tell you that being angry is wrong. Then suddenly you can say the room where you have your anger, or let's say all these different rooms within this castle, is emotions, right? So with the room where I had my emotion, anger, slowly I have, you can say, turned off the light within that room. I have shut the window aisles. I've closed the door, and maybe I've even shut it in and locked it and thrown the key away. Or maybe I've just kind of like just closed the door just slightly, so that there's still just a little bit of light passing into this room. And then basically, that is how we see shadows, is that it's all these dark rooms within your big, beautiful castle that you have the potential to open. But some rooms are just locked away so deep into traumas and other things that it's just too hard sometimes to get access to them. And then whenever you see another person, let's say I see another person being greedy, something like that, just imagine that. Then whenever I see that, it's basically like me just lurking into the room and then just shutting the door again because I don't want to go there, right?
Mhm.
I'm too afraid of kind of being greedy myself, even though in some situations it might be beneficial and even okay to be just a little bit greedy,
Mhm.
right? So that's how I look at shadow work.
Wow. Now, do you use this shadow work when you're coaching people?
Sometimes I try to use shadow work when I'm coaching people as well, and it depends on kind of like how far we are into our relationship. Um, when kind of when I yeah of course, and you surely know this yourself. I mean, it also depends on where your coachee is, or kind of like where the situation is going, and kind of like what way you are coaching this particular person as well. But what I always try to do is to looking kind of oftentimes most people they are afraid of being something, and that could be I'm afraid of being lazy, even though there's gift in being lazy sometimes.
Mhm.
So let's say that I'm stressed, and that's kind of like what I approach you with. And what is kind of the what is my obstacles for kind of just slowing a bit down?
Mhm.
And that may be because I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to be seen as lazy and unambitious, maybe. But let's imagine then, okay, so what are you afraid of? I'm afraid of being seen as a lazy person from my
Mhm.
colleagues, from business partners, from friends. But within, you can say, just being lazy, just sometimes, then there's a quality of kind of living life more joyfully,
Mhm.
relaxing, opening up to new possibilities and new insights. And it's about bringing all these qualities out. And that's something that I often do in coaching conversations as well,
Yeah.
if it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if people wanted to work with you, how would they get a hold of you? Do you have a website, or how would they find you?
Yeah. So again, I work with the software companies. I'm consultant here, and you can find me at NICQI.com. So it's basically just pronounced as Nikki. And that's why I think it's so funny that I created that business name. And otherwise, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to answer any type of question, any kind of question that you may have in regards to personal development, coaching, business, whatever it may be. And of course, whenever Kimberly she shares this podcast, please comment below, and I'll try to look out for the comments here and the questions here, and then try to answer it as well.
Okay, great. So, just on a personal note, what gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life?
Oh, so oftentimes I find a lot of happiness and fulfillment in deep work, but that is not really what my higher life purpose is. And that is something that I'm trying to get better at. And that is being amongst my dearest and most loving friends and family, and of course, my girlfriend, and doing things worth remembering.
Mhm.
And that's something that I try to do as much as possible, even though my ego loves just working.
Mhm.
But my essence really wants to be together with people, because in the end, I don't want to lie on my deathbed and kind of think about work. There's been studies, of course, and I'm sure you're aware
Mhm.
that almost all people who lie on their deathbeds, they don't talk about work. They talk about that they have worked too much in life and spent too little time with their family. And
Mhm.
of course, my essence is also about I want to be the person uh, uh, who do not regret anything lying on my deathbed.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Beautiful. So, thank you so much for being on the podcast today again.
you're most welcome, Kimberly. It was a deep pleasure, and I hope that your audience and everybody who's listening in got something great out of it. That is really why I'm here once again.
Great, great. So one last question. For you, what is the best advice you can give on living an incredible, amazing life?
So I don't believe there's one best advice for everyone. But what I believe is that doing personal development and thinking long term instead of short term is something that will give you so much joy over your lifetime, over your life. So think about, you can say that the small things that you can consistently do on a daily basis that brings you joy, and just try to keep doing them, because the results, again, they will compound over time, and you'll get so much more joy and happiness if you let the compound effect work for you. There's even a great Albert Einstein quote. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's something like compound effect is one of the world's greatest wonders, something like that. So with that in mind, I hope that is the best advice for living a incredible and long, happy life.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikki. We'll talk to you
You're
again
most
soon.
welcome. Yeah, take care, everyone.